If you looked at our wedding photos, you'd think we were the kind of couple who always knew. The kind who met at a coffee shop, laughed over matching Spotify playlists, moved in together without ever needing to define the relationship, because it just worked. And for a while, it did. 7 years of marriage, 3 apartments, 2 cats, 1 shared toothbrush holder, and a joint savings account we never argued about. From the outside, we were smooth and steady. And honestly, that's how it felt. Until it didn't. My name is Claire. I'm 34. I've been with Daniel since I was 24, and for all 7 of our married years, I carried a truth I was too scared to name out loud. I'm polyamorous, or more accurately, I've always been polyamorous. But I didn't have the language for it until it was already too late. I wasn't cheating. Let's just get that out of the way. This isn't one of those stories where I fell into bed with someone else and tried to justify it later by Googling what is polyamory. No. I was loyal. Entirely. Devastatingly loyal to one man. And that loyalty is what twisted me into knots every night for years. Because it didn't make the feelings stop. I could be deeply in love with Daniel, and still feel something spark when a woman touched my hand too long during a conversation. I could dream about people I hadn't kissed and still come home to Daniel every night without question. But I wasn't allowed to name it. Not even to myself, because I knew he wouldn't understand. Daniel is a good man. Steady, traditional, logical. The kind of person who finds comfort in predictability and loyalty, not just as values but as facts. He was the kind of husband who'd refill my car's gas tank without telling me. The kind who'd fold my laundry better than I ever could and never complain about it. But he also believed that love meant exclusivity. One soul, one heart, one bond. Anything else was betrayal, even fantasies, even thoughts. And I tried to live inside that definition for years. I tried so hard it started eating me alive. It got harder when Maya came back. Maya, my college friend. Maya, with the laugh that makes you feel like you're part of an inside joke, even if you're not. Maya, who had once drunkenly kissed me at a party in our junior year and said, if things were different. When she moved back to the city, we started getting coffee again. Just friends, just catching up. But every time I saw her, I felt this ache, like I was watching a version of myself I'd buried so deep, it only came out when she was around. And I didn't act on it. I didn't flirt. I didn't do anything wrong. Except, I started writing again. Started filling my journal with things I couldn't say out loud. At night, I'd lie next to Daniel in bed, our backs just barely touching, and wonder if loving him had to mean silencing the rest of myself forever. I didn't want less of him. I wanted more of me. But every time I imagined saying the words, I'm polyamorous, I saw his face tighten, his eyes go flat, the same way they did the one time we saw a documentary on open marriages, and he muttered, people just want excuses to cheat. So I stayed quiet, until I couldn't anymore. The night I told him, it was raining. We'd just gotten home from dinner with his parents. I was still wearing the necklace his mom gave me for Christmas. He was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher, humming an old Coldplay song like he always did when he was half distracted. I stood in the doorway, holding onto the frame like it was the only thing keeping me from unraveling. I need to tell you something, I said. He didn't even look up. You okay? I swallowed. I think I'm polyamorous. The sound of a plate slipping in his hand was louder than it should have been. He turned, slowly, quietly. What? I repeated it. And this time, he looked right through me. Like he was trying to figure out whether I was joking or confessing something far worse. That moment, those 5 seconds of silence between us, felt longer than our entire marriage. Because I could see it, clear as glass. The version of me he had in his mind, the safe, loyal wife, the woman who never needed more, shattering. He put the plate down and said 4 words, no, I can't do this, and walked out of the room. The first time I ever thought maybe I'm different. I was 19. It wasn't some grand revelation or a scandalous secret, it was simple. I had a boyfriend, Mark, sweet, artsy, a little moody. We'd been together for 6 months. I loved his poetry, the way he left voice notes instead of texts, the way he said Claire like he was memorizing me. But then there was Rachel. She was in my literature class. We'd studied together after hours, and one night, she fell asleep on my shoulder in the library, and I remember thinking, I love this too. Not instead, not in conflict, just also. Back then, I didn't have the words for it. Polyamory was something fringe, something weird or risky. So I did what most girls do. I buried it. I broke up with Mark and avoided Rachel and told myself, this must just mean I'm confused. Years passed. Other relationships came and went. Some monogamous, some messy. But that same pattern kept coming back. I didn't fall out of love easily. I just kept loving, quietly, platonically, passionately, in a way that felt like breathing, natural, constant, undeniable. Then I met Daniel. He was like no one I'd ever dated. Where past boyfriends were chaotic artists or aloof flirts, Daniel was calm, intentional, a man who kept his promises. He showed up early, called when he said he would, asked real questions, not just the kind that fill silences. He made me feel safe. And after years of feeling like a whirlwind, I wanted that safety more than anything. When he asked me to be exclusive, I didn't even hesitate. When he proposed after 2 years, I said yes with both hands. And when we said our vows to love and cherish, to honor and remain faithful, I meant every word. I just didn't realize what part of me I was leaving out of that promise. In the early years, it didn't seem to matter. I was too in love, too busy with our new life together, building a home, learning how to merge 2 separate routines into one rhythm. But slowly, cracks began to form. It started with the guilt. That creeping low hum in the back of my mind whenever I felt drawn to someone new, not in lust but in tenderness. A barista whose laugh lingered in my head for days. A coworker who once held my wrist a second too long during a work retreat. And then, of course, Maya. Maya was a chapter I thought I'd closed. We were never a thing in college. Just 2 girls who got too close, too fast. Late-night talks that teetered on the edge of confession. One kiss we never talked about. And then years of silence. When she moved back and texted me out of the blue, I was nervous, but excited. We started with casual meetups, coffee, brunch, walks through downtown. But every time I saw her, I felt more like myself than I had in years. Not because I wanted to be with her instead of Daniel, but because I wanted to be with her, too. And that was the difference. I never hid Maya from Daniel. He knew we were friends again. He even liked her in that mild husband-meets-wife's-friends way. But he didn't know what I felt, because I didn't know how to explain it without sounding like I was betraying him, even though I hadn't done anything. I started therapy 6 months before I told him. It wasn't about saving the marriage. Not yet. It was about saving myself from the guilt of being something I couldn't name. My therapist was the first person I ever said the word polyamorous to. She didn't flinch, didn't ask if I meant I wanted to cheat. She just asked, "When did you start feeling like this?" And for the first time in my adult life, I let myself be honest. I learned that polyamory isn't a choice, it's a capacity. Some people love deeply, exclusively in one direction. And that's beautiful. Others like me have the capacity to love more than one person. Fully, ethically, transparently. But we live in a world that tells us that kind of love is greedy, dangerous, immature. So I internalized that shame, buried it under being a good wife. Until the burial started killing me. The decision to tell Daniel didn't come from rebellion. It came from grief. Grief for the years I lost pretending to be someone I wasn't. Grief for the joy I suppressed to keep a peace I never truly earned. I wanted to give him the truth. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I finally knew what it meant to love him honestly. But what I didn't realize, what I had foolishly hoped against hope, was that loving someone honestly doesn't mean they'll stay. Especially when the truth isn't something they ever asked for. After Daniel walked out of the kitchen, I stood there for a full minute, just listening. No footsteps pounding up the stairs, no slamming of doors. Just the sound of rain tapping the windows and the dishwasher humming like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something irreversible. I stayed frozen in the doorway until the rinse cycle ended. Then I walked upstairs to find him already in bed. With his back turned, lights off, blanket pulled to his shoulders. He didn't say goodnight. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. That wasn't unusual. He liked early starts, but this time, the coffee wasn't made, the bathroom mirror wasn't wiped. His toothbrush was missing from the holder. I checked the drawer. He'd taken it. It felt like a declaration. The days after that blurred together. He was cold but not cruel, quiet but not confrontational. He still came home, but he didn't touch me. Didn't ask about my day. barely looked at me during dinner. We became polite strangers. I tried to bridge the gap, left little notes on the fridge, made his favorite risotto, even offered to go with him to church, something I hadn't done in years. But he didn't respond, not angrily, just emptily. It was worse than shouting. Because at least anger is connection, silence is erasure. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. "I didn't cheat on you," I said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed while he scrolled through his phone. "I didn't say you did. But you're treating me like I did." He looked up at me then, eyes sharp but tired. "I don't know what's worse, Claire, that you've been lying to me for 7 years, or that you think this isn't a betrayal." His voice didn't rise, it dropped into something colder, something final. That night, he moved to the guest room. The next morning, Maya texted me. "Hey. Just checking in. You seemed off last time. Coffee?" I stared at the message, feeling my chest tighten. She didn't know. She didn't know she was part of the reason my marriage was dissolving. And the truth? I hadn't even done anything with her, hadn't kissed her, hadn't even said anything. All I'd done was feel and confess those feelings, not to her, but to the man I promised everything to. I went to therapy again. "I think I broke my marriage," I said. My therapist tilted her head. "Or maybe you stopped breaking yourself to protect a version of your marriage that wasn't sustainable." I didn't know how to answer that, because I didn't want to be right. I wanted to be married. A week later, Daniel asked to talk. It was a Saturday. He'd been out all morning, and I assumed he was avoiding me. But then he came in, sat across from me at the dining table and said, "Do you love her?" I blinked. "Who?" "Maya." I hesitated too long. He nodded. "Thought so." "It's not," I started, but he cut me off. "You've always had a way of making things sound innocent, and maybe they are by your standards, but not by mine." His voice cracked a little, just enough to make my throat burn. "I didn't kiss her. I haven't done anything with anyone." "I know," he said, "but that doesn't matter." We sat in silence again. He stared at the table like it held the answer to a question neither of us wanted to ask. "I married you because I thought we believed in the same kind of love," he finally said. "I did too," I whispered. "No, Claire, you believed in me, but you never believed in this. Not the way I did." I felt like I was drowning in a truth I hadn't prepared for. He started staying out later. Said it was work. Sometimes it was. Other times I didn't ask. Maya stopped texting. I think she sensed something was unraveling. One night, I found a note on the fridge. "Therapy's not working for me. I'm moving out for a while." Just like that. No fight. No screaming. No begging. Just a man who realized the person he married never really existed the way he thought she did. I slept in his t-shirt that night, the old soft one with the fraying collar. It still smelled like his cologne. And as I curled into myself, crying into the sleeve, I kept thinking, I didn't leave him, I just told him the truth. And somehow that was enough to lose everything. Daniel moved out quietly. No boxes in the driveway, no furniture rearranged, just a few overnight bags, his laptop, and the sense that the house had shrunk in his absence. I told our families it was a break, that he was stressed, overworked, that maybe space would help us. No one questioned it, because we'd always looked perfect. Polite, stable, predictable. No one saw the aching distance behind our dinner table smiles. No one heard the silences that choked us in the dark. For weeks, I lived in limbo. I didn't know if I should be grieving or hoping. Didn't know if I should pack up my half of the closet or wait for his key to turn in the lock again. I kept telling myself, he just needs time. He's processing. He loves you. But the truth was, I wasn't sure he knew me anymore. I wasn't sure he ever had. Therapy became my only anchor. "I feel like I'm being punished for not hiding anymore," I told my therapist. "You're not being punished," she said. "You're living with the cost of authenticity. That's different." "But shouldn't love be stronger than this?" She paused. "Love is strong, but sometimes the framework people need for love isn't the same. And when those frameworks clash, love alone isn't enough." I hated how much sense that made. Maya reached out again. This time, it was a voice memo. "Hey, I don't know what's going on exactly, but I hope you're okay. And I want you to know that whatever's happening, I'm not judging you. I miss you. That's all." Her voice cracked near the end. I listened to it 5 times, never responded, because I didn't trust myself to draw a line I wouldn't cross. Then came the envelope. Daniel sent it to our house instead of meeting in person. Inside, a letter. Not legal, not a separation agreement, just words. Claire, I've been trying to understand. Trying to forgive myself for not seeing what you needed sooner and forgive you for not saying it. I'm not angry anymore. I'm sad. Deeply. Because I still love you. But I don't think I can build a life where I'll always be one step away from being not enough. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe it's just fear. But I need to feel chosen, without conditions, without footnotes. And I don't know if that's something you can give me. I hope you find what you're looking for. D. I read it 3 times before realizing I was sobbing into the sink. Because he wasn't wrong. He was just him. And I was me. That night, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. I studied myself like a stranger, tried to see what he had seen, what he had loved, then tried to see what I had hidden. And I asked myself the question I'd been avoiding. If I could go back to the night I told him, would I stay silent? Would I keep pretending? Would I swallow it all just to stay loved? The answer came quietly, but it came. No, because I wasn't loved. She was. The version of me that fit neatly into his life. The version that never needed more. That never wanted differently. That never said the word polyamorous out loud. And that woman was dying inside me. I emailed Daniel. Not to argue, not to plead. Just to say thank you. For trying. For loving me the way he knew how. And to tell him. I wasn't looking for more because he was less. I was looking for more because I was more. And I finally needed to stop making myself smaller to fit into the frame we'd built together. For the first time in months, I felt something like peace. Not relief, not happiness, but a stillness, a clearing. Like the moment after a storm when the sky hasn't turned blue again, but at least it stopped breaking. The house is quieter now. Daniel never came back, not even to collect the rest of his things. He sent his brother instead, which I think was his way of protecting both of us from one last heartbreak. I stood in the doorway and watched boxes disappear. Each one held a memory. His old rugby sweatshirt, the record player we bought secondhand in our 2nd year of marriage, our wedding album. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it finally made sense. People talk about loss like it's fire, sudden, engulfing. But this was different. This was erosion. 7 years of silent compromises and unlived truths. A slow wearing down of something beautiful into something breakable. And when I finally held up the truth like a lantern, I saw how fragile the foundation had become. I went back to therapy. I feel like I'm starting over, I told my therapist. She smiled gently. You are. But this time, you're building something on solid ground. Even if it's just me? Especially if it's just you. I didn't reach out to Maya. Not right away. Because even though the marriage was over, I didn't want to rush into another entanglement. I needed to figure out who I was without needing someone to mirror it back to me. So I gave myself time. Time to cook for one. To take long walks without a destination. To cry when it hit me, randomly in the laundry aisle or while folding towels. To laugh, too. Sometimes, surprisingly. Time to learn the difference between loneliness and solitude. One stings, the other sings. It took me 6 months to respond to Maya's last message. I kept it simple. Hey, I've been doing a lot of unlearning and healing. If you're open to coffee sometime with no expectations, I'd really like to reconnect. She replied within the hour. Yes, I'd love that. We met at a little bookstore cafe tucked behind a row of antique shops. She looked the same but softer, like the weight of wondering had lifted from her face. We didn't talk about what had happened right away. Instead, we talked about books. Travel, pets, stupid TikToks that made us laugh. It felt easy. Not because nothing had changed, but because everything had, and now there was nothing to hide behind. When she finally asked, so, how are you really? I told her the truth. I'm still sad sometimes, but I'm not lost. It wasn't a love confession. It wasn't the start of something new. Not yet. It was something gentler. An acknowledgement that maybe the people we orbit don't have to be either destinations or detours. Sometimes they're constellations, pieces of the map back to ourselves. I still wear my wedding ring sometimes. Not out of hope, but out of gratitude for the girl who believed in forever, and the woman who now understands that forever should never come at the cost of yourself. Daniel loved me the best way he knew how, and I loved him too. But we were two people trying to write poetry in different languages. I don't know what's next. Maybe one day I'll fall in love again with one person. with two. Maybe I won't. But what I do know, deep in my bones, is that I'll never again apologize for the way my heart holds space. I'll never shrink to fit someone's comfort zone. Never dim to match someone else's idea of clarity. I'm not too much. I'm not broken. I'm not selfish. I'm just me. And finally, that's enough.